Christy Myers, and welcome to the Menninger Clinic Facebook Live. Today we focus on how to help your children with that first day of school, their fears, their worries, and how to help parents help them through that day. From pre-K to college, starting a new school year is not easy, and so we have a team of experts today. On my right is Dr. Jon Stevens, who is Chief of Adolescent Psychiatry at the Menninger Clinic. Welcome.
Thanks, Christy.
And today we also have Linda Civallero, Assistant Director for the BridgeUp program at the Menninger Clinic. On my left is Anna Perez, who is a social worker with Pasadena ISD. Welcome. And also on my left, Laurie Curtis, who is Head of Student Support Services at St. Francis Episcopal School. Welcome to all of you. And we remind our Facebook viewers that you can send us your questions, and this panel is here to answer them. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to get some expert advice on some of the issues involved, not just the first day of school, but starting at a new school or transitioning to a new school. So we'll start by asking our experts how they would recommend making that first day of school less tense for the child and for the family. And I'd like to ask all of you, but starting with Anna and Laurie. You see the kids, you see the thousands coming in, they're all in their little backpacks and they're pressed in new clothes. But tell me, where's the tension coming from and how can parents alleviate some of it?
Well, I think that, of course, they're thinking about their friends and connections that they've had, maybe changes that have happened, and they know that they just don't know what's going to happen, that uncertainty. And so it's just about helping them to calm, helping them to get back into routines, helping them to have affirmations, to just think as positive as they can before they start going to school. So it's just a lot of pressure of making friends and having that social connection even with their teachers, because they've loved their teachers in the past, or maybe they didn't get along depending on their experience, and they don't know what's going to happen, and they really want to have that security.
Right, Laurie, what do you think?
You know, I think first days, it's a scary time. So as much advanced prep that you can do as possible so that morning isn't quite as rushed. If you can take care of lunches the day before, if you can take care of what they're going to wear to school, so that the morning you're not, screaming, let's go, first day, so that we don't get quite so nervous and tense. And I think a lot of front-loading the students too, talking to them about what the day is going to be like. This, we've been in the summer, now we're going to have to get up in the morning, we're going to have to get dressed, we've got to be out of the house by this time, and you're going to need to, get your backpack, get all these things together so that they know what to expect that morning.
Now, Dr. Stevens, how can parents help with the worry? So we talked about, Anna talked about uncertainty and then the new routine. We've been all out of routine. How can parents help with that the first day?
I think you said, what do you do on the first day? The planning that I counsel my patients as a child and adolescent psychiatrist is to begin now and start preparing for that success. That could be sleep routines. So some kids right now have developed some really poor sleep habits. They're waking up at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or later, and that's just not going to fly when it comes to the school year. So start getting a sleep cycle where you're kind of going to sleep at a regular time, and alarms going off, it's going to wake you up at a time that's going to be consistent with the school year. For patients that are on medicines, now I see this very commonly. Their ADHD does not go away over the summer months, let's say. So if your child is on a psychiatric medicine for ADHD, anxiety, depression, make sure that medicine is being taken now. Don't just wait till the first day of school to restart it. If they've been at a away camp and you didn't give it to them for weeks or months, start that medicine now. If it's not going well, meet with your therapist, your treatment team, your psychiatrist now. That will decrease not only your child's worries, but your worries as a parent.
Okay, thank you. And what are your thoughts about the first day of school from your observation working with kids?
And as a parent, I would say to let them know that feeling anxious is completely normal. That all kids, even teachers and parents, are worried and excited about the first day of school. That what they're feeling is completely normal.
That's true. We thought we'd do a little role play of what parents are going to see. Some of these parents out here are going to see this or worse. So Anna is going to be my elementary child. I'm going to be the kid. Okay, so Anna,
I'm going to be the parent.
you're the parent. I'm the kid. Yeah, that's right, of course. So I'm going to tell you, I have a stomach ache. I don't want to go to school.
Okay, so then I'm going to, let's start. Okay, so I'll put my hand on your shoulder. I'll have that connection with you and say, Christy, talked about this in the past, all these beautiful qualities that you have. So it's important for you when you're doing your day at school that you tell yourself, I'm safe, that you tell yourself, I'm unique. You know, just say positive things about yourself, think about those things, and then think about the people that support you. You know that you have mom here. My job is to keep you safe, and your job is to help me keep you safe. So it's good for you to talk to me. And if you feel like you can't talk to me, you can talk to your school counselor. If you can't talk to your school counselor, you know, remember pastor, or that second grade teacher you had, how close you were to her. I'm sure they'll let you talk to her maybe during a lunchtime. So you have people that are around you. So talk to yourself, you know, and also learn to take some breaths and just, you know, do it with me, sweetie, do it with me.
Okay.
Take a deep breath, slowly, and let it out. Yes, and you got this. You can do this. I know all the wonderful things you've done in the past, and what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? You
They
tell me.
won't like me, but I won't have any friends.
Well, what have you done in the past when you've had really bad problems? When you've gone through something really tough? What have you
Sit
done?
by myself at lunch.
Sit by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm worried that's gonna happen today. I don't wanna go.
So what about asking for help? So let's say if you really want to feel lonely, because sometimes people feel lonely even when they do have people around them because they have bad company. But you can ask someone to sit next to you. What if someone feels just like you? And maybe you can sit next to that someone you can spot that maybe feels just like you. And you can start talking to them and start a conversation. But if they don't respond, give it some time. Everything takes time. I know that, you know, our life is really fast, but you just give it time. Just like a little seed you put in, and it takes a little time for that flower to grow. So just you know, take it easy, Mama. You're gonna make it. You're gonna be okay.
That's good, and you've basically given a whole lot of encouragement to get the child to see beyond themselves, to wait, to look for the other friend who also might be, or would-be friend who might be lonely and could be a friend. Great. So let's talk about older kids. What happens if you think your kid's fine, they're in high school, and then they come home with a note? So I'm gonna be your teenager here.
All right,
You get to be the parent.
all right.
You need to sign this.
Okay, what is this?
I think I'm on academic probation, but I'm not sure I didn't read it.
Well, school just started, so we need to know a little bit about what happened.
Well, my teacher's just a jerk, and she just doesn't have time for me, so I don't like pre-calculus, so who needs it? I don't need calculus.
Well, this is some of the, requirements that, you're gonna need to do this year, so maybe, let's take a look. Can we log on to see your grades now? See maybe where things are going on?
Okay, I don't think you're gonna like it.
Okay, it's okay, we need to look at this.
Here it is.
Okay, there's a lot of missed assignments here.
Well, I couldn't do them. I didn't know how, and teacher was too busy. I tried to go talk to her, but there was a line of kids, so I just went home.
Well, I see you in your room at night, and I see you, I think you're studying. Is there something getting in the way?
Well, I have, stuff to do, Instagram to post, and, I have things to do.
So it sounds like there's some distractions, and I'm fine with you using that as long as you complete the assignments, and then we can kind of come up with an agreement where I can check that you're finishing it, and then you get what you want with the Instagram. But it sounds like that's got a little too much. What do you think about that? And we're gonna do this together.
Okay.
So what's the assignment that's due for tomorrow? Let's look at that, and we'll do those together, make sure we turn over a new leaf now, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. So, helping the child, getting invested, probably getting a tutor. But you know what? That's the scary part, that sometimes parents don't know. They think their older kids have adjusted okay, because they don't hear about it, and they don't talk to you, and they don't tell you that. Are there other red flags before you get to the academic probation or other issues?
Well, what I was trying to model there, I'm probably not so great, I didn't go to acting school or anything like that, in medical school, but I'll say, they've done studies on this, on different parenting styles and which ones have better outcomes. And what I was trying to model is a parent that has high expectations but also high help, is willing to get their sleeves, not even with a tutor, that they themselves are willing to get invested. Those kids have better academic outcomes, and better social outcomes And then another style, which is kind of more military, which is high expectations, low involvement. Kind of pick yourself up by the bootstraps, go get it done, and if you don't, you're punished. And you know, that doesn't work as well. And what also doesn't work as well is kind of free range parenting, which is low expectations and low involvement. Like, you'll figure it out, honey. You'll find your way. You know, try your best, but really no expectations, no clear, like, accountability, but also no clear help. So that's what I was trying to model there, and I think is maybe, the science backs up that approach.
Getting involved and helping as much as you can one-on-one. Then when you need help, calling in the tutor. But finding early, are there some red flags that say both of you have seen where you can see this coming? Maybe it's just that you don't see them spending enough time on homework. And it's hard to tell them because all the homework's done on the computer. So they can be on their computer and you think they're doing their homework. But are there other red flags besides just not being aware of the homework?
You're speaking more about the academic concerns?
Academic or both, social, where things are going wrong. You think the school year is going okay, and it turns out later it's not, but you find out weeks or months later. If you found out earlier, you might be able to redirect, especially on the academic side, where you could get involved, contact the teacher, do a lot of things academically if you find out early. Socially, the same
I
thing.
think the experts can speak to that better than I can, but certainly detachment, like not hanging out with friends, being locked up in their room, not wanting to talk to parents, not doing the things they used to like to do.
Yeah, not keeping it too focused just on grades, and I couldn't agree more with Linda. It's basic body. Has their sleep pattern changed? Has their friend group changed? Has their appetite? Are they not eating with you anymore? And having things like eating where the car ride to school can be great, kind of times where you have the child captive or the teenager to kind of, do a check-in, an emotional check-in on where are they? And if you start seeing major changes in that, in their behavior and their friend group, that can be really more sensitive than just looking at the grades, because the grades, in my experience, are more of a lagging indicator that you might see weeks or months down the line. The academic probation usually comes several weeks or months after a problem's been brewing. I don't know if the educators would agree with that.
And the sooner the better, right? Now, the schools do have experts in place, but a lot of times parents don't know that, or they don't know to ask, or they don't know which expert to ask for. What are some options, some of the titles of the people in the schools that could help a child who's not adjusting well socially and who's not adjusting well academically? Probably two different groups of people.
Well, in our school district, we're very blessed that we have behavior specialists, we have our counselors, we have also even some mental health programs such as Menninger that is a support to us. There's a CIS worker with their communities and schools. There's community youth services, a CPS prevention program that helps students. There's even where they help those students that are not in academic probation, but in other probation, legal probation, to transition back into their schools once they finish their punishment, and when they come back, you can actually arrange meetings, you can coordinate. Even sometimes your assistant principal has that specialty in children that have special needs, that have mental illness, and they're just so good at it that they can also help parents to navigate the system, how to get their child support, how to set up even they call them 504 protections, accommodations, so that the child has extra time, and so all these things are set up if the child is on medication, like the doctor said. So children like that, parents, you need to let the schools know what your child is struggling with. Even like we were talking about what's an indicator. An indicator can be, if you're going through a divorce, parent, get ready, because their child is going to be affected by it. Things that we do as parents, they're going to affect our children, and there's a ripple effect. The good that you do, the bad that you do has a ripple effect. And so it's just, we have to prepare our children, and sometimes it's just calling the counselor and saying, hey, we're going through this. I just want to let you know, in case you see something, we'll work together at this. And you don't have to feel ashamed or anything. It could be a death of a loved one. It could be, an illness in your family. Just communicate it with the school, and we'll find the person. We might not know right off the bat, but it's just about finding out what's happening and not assuming, because there's a lot of assuming, even from the parents' side. I know know it's a long answer.
No,
but
it's
just,
right.
trying, how do you find a person? Sometimes it just takes a little bit of knocking on different doors, or just from the get-go communicating what's going on, and not have those parent secrets or family secrets, because we're going through the same things too, even as professionals, and we're just in this together for the sake of the child.
That is a good answer, because many parents are trying to do this on their own, and they're working, and they're trying to figure this out at night when everybody's tired, and they don't realize that maybe a phone call to a counselor who might have all of these names and phone numbers and support structure staff on speed dial, and they can help you kind of, I guess, be your gatekeeper to find out who can help your child. And it's not, I think, too, a stigma of shame that you need to call the school for some help. I think a lot of people are afraid if they don't do it on their own, they look like bad parents, but that is not the case. Laurie, could you speak to that?
Sure, and I think it's really important to know, and I'm in the role of a counselor in my building, that we're there to educate the whole child. And sometimes that does involve social and mental and emotional skills. It's not just about learning your math facts or about learning how to read. It's about learning how to be a productive, good citizen. And that's where you can call upon the help of other professionals in the school system. I would really urge parents, wherever their children are in school, get your school directory and sit down and look at the list of people working in the building. Is there a counselor on this campus? There's not on this campus, but is there another person with a different job title that maybe could give me some help if I needed it? And school nurses are a great resource too. They see the kids. They know when kids are coming in with tummy aches that really aren't physical ailments, and so use your school nurse too. There are a lot of people in the building that can help you, but you need to. I would recommend looking in your own individual building. Who's there? And even if it's going to your homeroom teacher, go find someone.
Okay. Yeah, we have some good questions from our Facebook viewers. The first one, for kids who do have changes in their appetite, sleep patterns, etc., and their parents are concerned about this, what actions can parents take? So,
Getting good information from a school nurse, school counselor is a great place to start.
okay.
To get as many, 360 view of the child. And that could be from a coach in an after-school program. It could be really any of that. So we want to also look then, do we want to talk to your pediatrician then? Might usually for most parents then, to bring this up in an annual physical or before that as a special visit. So usually parents have to go through several steps before they find someone as a child psychiatrist.
Right.
But you really want to try to get that. There are a lot of interventions, like we talked about good sleep hygiene, looking at a healthy, well-rounded diet, not just snacks, and parents having to get involved in that. Sometimes you're not expecting it, that 14-year-old or 15-year-old might have to get involved a little bit more, because that transition to high school or to a new school, depending, can be difficult.
It can be. Another question, are poor grades and missed assignments the only signals that a student may have anxiety about school or at home? And then can overachievement be a sign that something is off? These are good questions. So first, are poor grades the only signals about anxiety? Probably not.
No, not at all. And I've had kids that have had to be hospitalized that have straight A's. So, and it's not always poor grades that are really associated. Some kids are able to hold that aspect of their functioning together. Or maybe that's an early refuge, which is doing well in school. So it's not, the poor grades, you need to know more. You have to go more in depth and know your child a little better what's going on. It's usually a complicated situation though.
Yeah.
It's really not just one single thing that is a tip-off, but I think friends, changes in behavior, they're coming home with their signs of substance abuse. Parents miss that, especially in teenagers, a lot. And we're just not, well, I went to bed early. I don't know when they're coming home. That's a really problematic thing that I'd say we need to know more about that child, what's going on.
What about problems at school besides the sudden drop in grades? What about they have a new group of friends, and the friends you're worried about? These friends, some of whom may be taking drugs, friends who are not good influences.
Or the lifelong friends that they had, suddenly they're not associating with.
That's right. And
That
they're
would be
changing friends suddenly into a peer group. Say the parents are worried about that. How do you extricate your child from this new group of friends that you're really worried about?
That's more challenging.
That's really, really
It
tough,
is
because,
hard.
yeah, they're gonna probably fight back on you if you try and, dish the new friends that they're hanging out with. I think observations, I noticed that, the new person you're, hanging out with after school, I've noticed that they seem really on edge, or I've noticed that they use some language that we really don't use in our house. Rather than confronting, just point out your observations and hopefully try and lead them to where they can, come to this discovery themselves.
And also, sometimes it's okay if your child doesn't trust you to talk to you, maybe you can make a way for that child to talk to someone else. And that the same advice that you gave as a parent and they didn't listen to, but because it came from Christy, they're like, oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
I won't have that girlfriend, or yeah, she is trouble, or whatever it is, just sometimes just be okay with your child, as long as they do trust somebody, and they do let it out, and they do talk to someone, but just maybe you can arrange that somehow. You're working behind the scenes to make sure that your child is doing well, finding out what's going on in school through that coach, or, so there's just ways that you can talk to your child and make sure that they're doing well. And sometimes you do have to put your foot down, because it's a very dangerous situation, especially in our school district. There's some areas that, you do have to do your best, but just surround yourself with support and make sure that child knows that you're doing it from a place of love. And if you do what the doctor is saying, you're connecting, supporting, you're constantly knowing what's going on. And many parents I've seen that they don't check their grades till or ever ask how they're doing in school till the end of the year, so something wrong happens. But we can get on the front line, and even if they don't want to, the school might not want to have they're not offering to have a meeting, but let's meet each other halfway to help our babies, and advocate for them.
I was just going to add to that. Sometimes when friendships change, it's for the good. It's because the friends that they've always had maybe are going down a different path themselves. So sometimes that conversation with your child about, you used to really hang out with Christy all the time, and I don't see y'all together anymore. Is something going on? Because sometimes we need to trust our children that they are making good decisions about the friendships that they're going to be making also. So I don't think we should just assume when a friendship group changes that it's because they're now making poor choices. It may be that they're making good choices. And we need to have that conversation so that we know
That's a
what's
good
going on.
point. That's a good point. Thank you, Laurie. And a Facebook question here: at what point in time should we, the parents, seek medical or psychological therapy?
Well, usually what happens typically is when these interventions that we're all talking about, that the average parent can institute is it's just not working. Where a pediatrician is giving advice, or there's some kind of counseling going on in the school or an after-school group or extracurricular activity, and it's just the child's not doing well on a variety. That could be grades, it could be just basic function, it could be social withdrawal, it could be a variety of things. It could get as severe as suicidal thoughts and self-harm behaviors, severe substance problems where families are finding bottles of alcohol under the bed, in the closet, in the car. These are things that I've seen in my office. Some things now with vaping, but it's not vaping tobacco, it could be cannabis, or even synthetic cannabis kind of substances. These are major red flags, and you have to, I think, use the phrase, put the foot down. There's sometimes where a relationship is a bullying relationship, is cyberbullying, which families are oftentimes taken aback by because they're not aware of what's going on. Inappropriate sexual material being sent online that could really destroy someone's relationship and reputation, overnight. So these are the more serious situations that I typically see, and me and my team, because it usually involves a variety of treaters. But hopefully, what we're talking about today intervenes before it gets to these kind of more severe levels.
Maybe Anna can talk about Pasadena has a really strong collection of programs that they can offer to kids. Could you talk about some of those? Because I think parents may not know all of the things that happen within a school or school district to support kids.
Well, there are CIS workers and counselors, and they do have training in trauma. Many of the counselors are offered training in trauma. So groups can happen in school, not all the time, but if they're not able to, there is a partnership with MHMR, which is now the Harris Center. that we can refer people to. There are two school clinics that have medical and mental health. So there's a social worker that's a licensed clinical counselor, and that they can offer that, and that's for free for students that live on those zip codes, or that are still to those clinics. So if that is not an option, and that could be if your child is in special ed or if they are, in general education. So all students have an opportunity to get some help. And then I'm a district social worker, and if those areas cannot help, or how it is, sometimes we don't have medical insurance, or there's just struggles, so we'll help find ways to overcome those barriers so that you can access some services. And I also want to piggyback on what Doctor said, that many of us, sometimes even as teenagers, I've heard of a young lady, her parents are working class, and she hasn't seen a doctor in like 5 years, and she's a teen. She just graduated from high school. And so sometimes just seeing a doctor can help you, deal with some of those issues. So someone will be there to help you. So with the doctor, with our help, there's behavior specialists also, a behavior response team in the district, and they all have a school assigned to them. So just as a parent, you can go to your school, and there's a plethora of programs to help. I'm hoping, and of course the community in school, social workers that there are in the school. So hopefully there's somebody to help. But if not, at least get yourself involved with a doctor. Primary care, it's so basic what I'm saying, but it really is a safety net. It's a protective factor for our students.
You brought up cyberbullying. If a family does become aware, they're probably first taken aback. What's their first step? Do they go to the school? What if it's happening after school? What are your thoughts on how families should deal with the very beginnings of cyberbullying?
Well, you need more information, because you need to know what's going on, and it's not, the person on the other end who's represented might not be what that is, and I've seen cases get actually legal, because it could be an adult masquerading as another teen, and we've seen so many highly publicized issues where this has even led to people killing themselves.
Yes.
So we cannot take the issue of teen suicidal thoughts seriously enough. I mean, it's a real problem, and what goes on now, it's unbeknownst to many families, certainly the schools, because the school, many of them are not allowing the free use of technology and cell phones, but a lot of this can happen in the family home. Parents are asleep, but they're not aware. Parents are working long hours, and parents need to know. A lot of times families are paying for that cell phone, paying for the service, and have rights to access that service. What's going on in the conversations.
That's a good idea then for parents to look at the text every once in a while, look at some of the emails?
In certain cases, I think it absolutely is, and parents and kids should know that. But if a kid is going downhill and things are not getting better, that is something that information is very important.
Okay.
Not every child will come out and tell a parent. Sometimes it is a third party, a doctor, a coach. I want to get the information, good information from wherever we can get it. It's not always in my office. It could be with a therapist. It could be with someone at school. So I welcome when the school contacts me, or someone who's invested in that child reaches out.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Don't be defensive. Say if the school reaches out to you, that's a good thing. Get the information. They're not trying to be judgmental. They're probably trying to find a problem early, a change in behavior.
Some parents are defensive. I'm sure you've experienced it, where the initial reaction is denial. No, that's not what I see. And with the child's behavior at school and home can be vastly different. And I think that's why we want to take that information very seriously. I'm sure you have examples and that could jump to mind when you tell a parent.
It does. A parent will say, there's no way.
No way.
That my child is engaging in that kind of behavior. Or, I check their phone all the time and I don't see it. But there are so many ways to hide what's on that phone that, even the most diligent parent probably doesn't know all the ways there are to hide information on a phone. And I think, I think the schools can do, and I think we're getting better at it, but educating the whole group of students about how important it is to share that information with someone. If you know that a friend is being cyberbullied, tell somebody. Go and let someone at the school know. Because usually there's a group on a text or on that kind of information going around, and if someone will report it, then that can start the investigative process and hopefully ward it off before it continues too long.
How does that work? What it is to start the investigative process, say, on a group cyberbullying? Tell me, kind of walk me through that.
Well, we've had situations where a student has come to us and said, here's a screenshot. This is what is going across, this is what someone is saying about another student. And so we contact the parents, we talk to the students. Now, we're in an independent school, so our processes may be a little bit different, but we get involved in it because whether it's happening outside of school or in school, it's affecting the person as a student. And so it's something we want to find out about. We've also had parents contact us. Again, if you've got a screenshot of something, that's the best thing. If you see something on your child's phone, don't necessarily get rid of it right away. Let someone else see it first, or take a screenshot of it so that you can share that information.
You brought something up that's important. At Pasadena ISD, we have see something, say something. Or other school districts might have Crime Stoppers. But it could be anything that a student observes. They can call that number. They can I think it's text or call, and it's both. And it's called See Something, Say Something. So what if we do work on this? What we're doing is wonderful. We're breaking the stigma of talking about anxiety, social issues, and just helping the students to. It's not just, you're not snitching. You're helping somebody.
That's right.
That's how you can reframe it. And that parent that knows something that's happening to another student at the school, feel free to share, because you will want someone to do that for you. So it's just, we're a community where we're trying to, just do the best for our students.
That's a beautiful new way to think about that. We're all in there to protect, whether it's your child or another child. And a heads up is appreciated. We have another good question from our Facebook viewers. What's the language to use as a parent to help young children talk about their feelings?
Well, I think curious and open-ended language, so curious about that child, and every child's going to communicate differently. For little kids, it might even be through play, drawing, etc. But kids of all ages need to learn to talk about feelings. I know many adults that I see still can't talk about their feelings. I want to introduce a concept of social-emotional learning, where it's something that we use in schools, and I'm sitting next to an expert that could say more about it, to help kids not only talk about their feelings and process that in more pro-social ways. And then I'm going to turn that over to you, because you kind of really, you do so much in this space in social-emotional learning.
Thanks. Menninger has a community initiative called BridgeUp, and through that we support schools and nonprofit organizations to bring social and emotional learning programs and mental health programs into schools like Pasadena ISD. And social and emotional learning is really social skills, life skills, the kinds of things that we're talking about, like feelings, and it's helping kids to understand their feelings, to know how to manage them, to have better relationships, how to be a good friend, to connect with teachers, with kids, with parents. And these skills are intertwined with academic learning. If a kid is not in a good place emotionally, they're not ready to learn. They're not going to do well in school. So we know how important it is to build these skills in students, and we're supporting that through this program in schools. Answering that question more specifically, one of the therapists here gave a presentation one time, and she used a feelings wheel. And I went home and I printed it off and I put it on the refrigerator, because kids, and I think even adults, we use simple words like I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm sad, but there are just so many more words that can describe more in depth the kind of anger you're feeling and why. So I would just look up feelings wheel, and there are tons of them online, and it gives you some language to help your kids talk about what they're feeling.
Also, you can use animals as descriptors. A meerkat is maybe calm or collective, or bears or kittens, they're curious, or a tiger, you feel angry, a bear, and then you describe how that animal is. And you can also do thermometers. How much do you feel something from a scale of 1 to 10, or you can show them a thermometer and just describe. And what is really good that I think is when someone does something, when a child does something for you, you can describe what they did and how that made you feel. So, sweetie, you picked up after yourself. I feel so relieved because I had so much to do, and so I felt relieved. You know, you can describe what that is, because now I don't have to do, you know, this or that, or just, you know, affirm them and describe what they're doing at every moment you can, so that they can get that language. So it's not just, you know, you're doing great, but you know, how you're doing it, I noticed that you're smiling, you're calm, you're relaxed, you know, or you're angry, or whatever it is, and you can do that.
You know, Linda, I love the feelings wheels too, and we even play games with them at school. You know, sort of role-playing type things, you know, okay, we're gonna start out, I'm sad, okay, well, I'm not just sad, I'm overwhelmed with, you know, so show me what that looks like. And we play lots of charades with kids with different feelings, so that they can get a sense of, you know, where am I on this anger scale? Am I, you know, all the way to outraged, or am I just a little ticked off about that? And so we can play, and they can see it when you're not in the moment, so that later when they are in the moment, they can know what that word is, how severe is that feeling.
And where do you take that? Once they can use a word for their feeling, the next step is, I guess, to deal with the feeling.
The skills of developing how to deal with those feelings. And it's going to be age appropriate.
Right.
This is not a skill that you just, you know, you either have it or you don't. It's something that you master over a lifetime. And all of us can develop better skills than that. So I think that's where we talk about getting some tools in the toolbox that child can use to control those, hopefully not outraged, but a little bit lower on the scale.
And one of the great things that Menninger does is when they're helping us with the social-emotional learning, they're teaching the staff too. So they're giving staff trainings, and we also have something called conscious discipline, a model that's teaching teachers and the students how to self-calm. So it's something that over the years we've brought in just different cohorts. I mean, it's been wonderful for us to learn how to model to children. And so it's just not the parents that are trying to help the babies, but the teachers also, and Menninger, you know, the trainings, and just everyone just trying to model. You can teach someone, and also by modeling.
What if you think your child may be becoming a loner? This today could mean a lot of things. It could be nothing but a stage. But what could parents do to help that child ease into more friendships and a different kind of a life?
You know, there are some kiddos that just are introverts, and that's okay as long as they are happy with them. So I don't think it's necessarily a panic if they're not, you know, surrounded by friends all the time. If they enjoy their alone time, if they prefer the company of one person, or, you know, just a small group of friends. But when they're becoming truly isolated to the point that they're not really interacting with anyone at all, and you see other signs of discomfort with them as well, then I think then it's time to intervene.
Thank you. We have another question from our Facebook viewers. What are some tips or skills to help an anxious child?
I think we've talked about that a little bit. You did a wonderful discussion earlier. I'm not going to be able to top that, but also for parents to control their own anxiety on that. I think some parents are not fully aware of how their anxieties, you know, radiate out to a child.
True.
So when the child's, you know, amping up or having that to stay calm, and I think you did a great job in the role play, and what you would say earlier, of staying calm and neutral, inquisitive, and affectionate, and really present. Mindful is the big word of the day, but I think it's, you know, it's being present, and that can do so much, especially for younger children. But even in a teenager, if you're anxious and you feel your own voice amping up, your own heart rate, and, you know, I'm even clenching my fists now, but you're probably going down the wrong way. That's not really going to help unstick the situation.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago being at the ER with Dr. Red Duke, who was such a wonderful ER doctor, and set up Lifeline for Houston. When the patients would come in and they were in really bad shape and it was a life or death situation, he would move slower and talk slower. And everybody in the room would calm down, including me, and I'm just watching. But everybody was, da, 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 we got him in, and this is what we did, da, 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 da. And when he walked in the room, they slowed down. And I remind myself that your blood flow to your brain improves when you can stay calm, and that means you can think better. But we forget that, we just go like this, and we need to go like that, you know.
That's been shown in many other studies of Navy SEALs, that before a mission, their heart rates are high, and then when they find their mission, then their heart rates go down, cortisol levels, which is essentially go down because they know what they need to do and they're already trained for that. So I agree with you. We can model that by getting calmer, more relaxed, and you know, a lot of parents, they know what to do. They've lived through this, but sometimes it's just so hard in the moment. Or if
And you
get that
worry
bad
about your
news,
child,
of
and
course,
your
of
child's
course.
upset, so you're upset, and you want to fix it, and you can't, because it's out there, it's at the school, I can't fix it tonight, and we're all tired. And you add all that, and maybe hungry, and then it's multiplied.
That's right.
So, and that's just the way it is at home, and sometimes we just say, let's eat first, and then deal with it, because sometimes everybody's just hungry, and it's not quite that big a deal after dinner.
But that's wonderful, that's a great tip. Sometimes it's about the timing. Some people, they want to talk about it now, right here, right now, but just, there might be a good place, a good time, and communication is pretty much the key. You can learn how to breathe. You can teach your child breathing, but truly, it's when you let it out and you're able to talk about something and that load comes off of you, that's important to me, to have that communication with that child, whether it's with you or someone else, but the child has it off their chest and you're listening and you're not saying, let's deal with, you'll get over it, or it's not a big deal, or cover it up. But you let that child listen, even if it doesn't make sense, but listen anyway, and problem solve.
That was one thing I really liked about the role play earlier too, was instead of going back and yelling about all the missed assignments, you said, okay, let's focus on tonight's assignment, let's get this one done. And kept the confrontation out of it, so the parent, even though the parent is probably going, I can't believe you didn't do all those other assignments, but instead of harping on that, stay calm and think, okay, we're gonna move forward. We may have to deal with this later, but right now, let's do something that's a positive step, that we can, that we can take this, turn it around. Everybody calm down and let's go forward.
I wanted to add a strategy for anxiety, or really any other emotion. It's to preempt it, to know what causes, to talk about, you get anxious sometimes, what are some things that cause that, and to know what causes anxiety and how the child feels in that moment, and some things that they can do, like the breathing, but to think about it before it actually happens. The same would go for being angry or upset.
So say they have a big test tomorrow, kind of walk me through that. How would you help your child if they're gonna get anxious, if it's a test in a subject they're not very good at? How would you help them the night before, think it through, and deal with
I'm
the
gonna
anxiety?
punt it back. I know that it's a strategy that you can use, and I try it with my kids, but not being a trained expert, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
I think it's, again, conversation out of the moment. Last week we had a really rough morning, and it was hard for you to go to school. So let's talk about what made that morning rough. You were tired, you didn't want to get out of bed. Okay, we know we're gonna have to get out of bed, and so let's just, let's talk about that you don't like to, but we're gonna have to do it anyway. And maybe you get angry if the teacher doesn't call on you. You've raised your hand 3 times and the teacher hasn't called on you, and so you get angry over that. Let's talk about what you can do. Can you talk to your teacher? Can you say, will you please call on me? Sometimes maybe she didn't recognize, or he didn't recognize that they weren't calling on you. So come up with some strategies about what can you do that maybe help you solve that problem that is causing you stress and, anger, anxiety in advance.
That's a good idea, and I would think that most children would open up if you said, let's talk about what was the problem. If, like you said, if you're out of the moment and it's later, and they think back, well, here's what was bothering you. They might, especially if they feel like you have a good idea, it might help them. And
it's
talking to the teacher.
It's not judgmental. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
let's just talk about that situation. Not that you were wrong or right, but that we know it was a problem, and you probably recognize it was a problem too.
And said for them to, they're nervous about taking a test tomorrow, you can ask them, well, what have you done in the past when you were successful? What did that look like? And they might be able to, answer, well, I studied up earlier, or I didn't procrastinate, or what can we do, the next time? So it's just about problem solving, or giving them skills on how to handle life, because that does, that could happen to me, that could happen, so.
Sure, figure out, if you feel yourself, your anxiety building because you don't know an answer. Let's skip that problem and go to the next one. You can always come back to it later. Don't let it bog you down. Or do you need to just get up and take a break? Go get a drink of water. Go to the restroom. Get out of the moment and take some deep breaths and then come back and tackle a problem.
We've talked a little bit before about achieving academically. Sometimes parents do need to encourage a child to achieve because they can tell their child is gifted, but they're maybe not really motivated. How do you encourage them to achieve academically and not make them feel stress? More encouragement, less stress. How do you walk that tightrope?
That's a really tough one because there are so many factors involved with both the parent and with the student. And so I don't think there's an easy one-size-fits-all answer to that. But I do think parents recognizing and appreciating the positive qualities in their student, building them up for those specific things, but then also, as the doctor said earlier, high expectations, but high support. So if you're going to expect academic excellence, then you need to be prepared to put in the supports to help that happen. And on occasion, when they fall behind, it's not a reason to panic and go crazy over it. Recognize everybody's going to get a C on a paper at some point in their life. And in fact, that's even a good thing. You need to learn how to handle that C.
That's true. That's a whole other set of problems. The high achiever may not understand how to handle the very rare failure, and that's part of life.
That's right.
How do you advise them to deal with, I blew it, instead of personalizing it, saying, it happens, or maybe this was a different test or a different professor. How do you encourage them to say, deal with it and then let it go?
That's how we try to do a lot of parent education on, how to help your children learn how to fail. And, there's the Blessing of a Skin Knee book. There's all kinds of literature out there to help parents understand that they can't expect perfection or excellence out of their children all the time, and how to help them when they come to a challenge, how to pick themselves back up and keep on going.
And that's important in life, in their careers, to be able to go forward. In the case of a job doesn't work out as well as you want, you can't fall to pieces. You need to pick yourself back up and go on.
And that's for every level, every child, whether you're a great, achieving, or whether you might have some special needs or challenges, life, we have to get our children ready for life. And it's going to come very soon. Before we know it, they're all grown up. So it's about getting them ready for the big transition to adulthood.
True. And how can adults create this trust and communication we talked about, not in the moment, so the kids will want to talk about their emotions, they'll open up. Talking about a problem later, but also just in general, say there's nothing in particular, but you feel like there's something that they want to say and they haven't been able to say it. Just sit down separately and talk about it. How do you get them to actually open up?
I think date nights, just going out alone, you might have several siblings, and that time you need to take out some time and go out with your child alone and have that
One-on-one time with
yes.
each child. That's a good idea. And that's when you bring these things up. Make it a positive thing. Going getting ice cream or something like that. What a good idea.
I'm a big fan of the phrase I've noticed, and I use it all the time, both as a parent and at work as well. But I've noticed that this seems to me that this is happening, and I'd like us to find a time to talk about it. So why don't you give it some thought, and let's see about talking about it later today or in the morning, and giving them some lead time to process maybe what they want to say about the situation as well as you.
Thank you very much. We are out of time. Believe it or not, this has gone so fast. We want parents to know that you are not alone. If your child is having problems when the school year starts, adjusting to the school, adjusting to academics, or especially adjusting to interpersonal relationships, that you can go to your school, you can talk to the counselor, the nurses, as we've heard today, but don't be afraid to ask for help. You can also call the Menninger Clinic, and there are therapists here who can help. The phone number is 713-275-5400. They have ideas with parenting questions, school questions, adjustment questions, and Menninger Clinic has many programs like the BridgeUp program that is helping in the schools today. So the programs are there. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because sometimes an early intervention can prevent many, many problems later on down the road. And we thank you to our experts, Dr. Jon Stevens, Chief of Adolescent Psychiatry at Menninger Clinic. And we thank you to Linda Civallero, Assistant Director for the Menninger BridgeUp program, Anna Perez with Pasadena ISD, and Laurie Curtis with the St. Francis Episcopal School. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm Christy Myers, and thank you for joining us.